Dubai. Isn't this just paradise? But it's not. It's not a utopia. All of this, it's just marketing propaganda.
And more than 36 have died on the job.
Okay, the Dubais and Qatars of this world are the quintessential consumerist, feudal-capitalist, and neo-feudalist state, if you could even call it a state. All those amazing pictures and videos we always see of Dubai and Qatar look amazing, of course, but let me remind you, they are just images and videos. There is a mediator in between, and that they are all mediations which serve a societal grand purpose, which is to inculcate and defend the economic, social, and political agenda of privileged groups that dominate the domestic society and the states. The media serve this purpose in many ways, through selection of topics, distribution of concerns, framing of issues, filtering of information, emphasis in tone, and by keeping debate within the bounds of acceptable premises. And what that means is that these works are constructed for marketing aims. They try to present the glamorous side of Dubai to gain international public awareness. Images here are in between the ideology and the public in such a way that they function as a filtering mechanism. But once we actually zoom in out of the picture a bit more, we see that there is another dimension to it. And that dimension is the dark side of the Dubais and the Qatars of our world. In this video, I aim to demonstrate how Dubai's class system operates using concepts and ideas from consumerism and capitalism. Basically, Dubai's class system is divided into a couple of hierarchical layers. We have the Emiratis, the people that are citizens of the country and city, which occupy the top of the layer. They basically have a stake in all private companies and get special privileges from the government. You can say that the ruling elite are the country's citizens. Underneath the Emiratis, we have expats, which range from highly educated expats who occupy white-collar jobs and those that occupy blue-collar jobs. The former are usually paid very well, but still are implicitly under the dogma of the ruling class. They don't really have much authority to go against the upper class. It's important to note that Emirati business owners sponsor these expats to come into the country and work for their businesses. Usually it is under the kafala system, which is a story for another time. Then we have the worst of them all, the labor migrants, the blue-collar workers. These workers are also sponsored by their Emirati business owners, but the power dynamic between the workers and their business owners is much more evident. Under the false pretense of sponsorship, these workers are actually slave laborers and are owned by their owners. Their passports are taken away, so they have no chance of going back home. They live in work camps that are in unlivable conditions, and a lot of the time, they are subjugated to mental and physical abuse by their so-called sponsors. See, when you have so much oppression and injustice, you need to create mechanisms of illusion to hide the oppression and injustice. And that is why the Dubais and the Qatars of our world are like movies. They are elusive manifestations of reality that don't really disclose their own means of production. Much like how Hollywood creates stars and studios that are somewhat detached from reality, but you as a viewer take it to be reality because it is so utopian and perfect. Siegfried Kracauer, a German cultural theorist, has already noticed this phenomenon about 100 years ago in relation to movies. Back in the 1920s, when a huge middle class was emerging in Western Europe and people were flocking to the cities, there were these cinemas or picture palaces, as they called them. They were so extravagant that they distracted the masses from their daily industrious hard work so that they don't lose direction and meaning in their lives. It was like opium for the masses. Kracauer states, "They serve one sole purpose, to rivet the audience's attention to the peripheral, so that they will not sink into the abyss. The stimulations of the senses succeed each other with such rapidity that there is no room left for even the slightest contemplation to squeeze in between them." And here Kracauer talks about the abyss, which I would say is that capitalist pit of death, which the laborers have already fell into due to elusive promises. And for the upper classes, consumerism is at the heart of what Kracauer coins as the stimulations of the senses. These countries and cities are overly exuberant, overly gluttonous. overly rambunctious. They have been neo-colonized by American globalization, which entails that sociocultural forms of being do not undergo an organic progression. When you have such excess and an overabundance of materials defining your identity and lifestyle, you are stripped away of your own humanity. As legendary postmodernist thinker Jean Baudrillard states, consumption means an activity of the systematic manipulation of signs. It is not the object in itself that we use to create meaning for our identities, but it is the meaning that is attributed to that object by the powerful elite. So the middle classes are enslaved by materiality and consumption, which they are not even aware about, which distracts them from the reality of their existence. And the lower classes, the working classes, are literally enslaved by labor, both parties reinforcing the other, all managed and controlled by the elite.